Don't do to others what you don't want done to you. It seems that there are quite a few people who don't understand this. Unfortunately, my sister-in-law, Emily, was one of them. I've decided to give her a taste of her own medicine, since she can only realize it when it's done to her. Now that I've successfully completed my revenge, I'd like to share the story. My name is Harper. A 30-year-old housewife with a 3-year-old daughter. The whole thing started the year my daughter was born. My husband, Keith, works in sales and often travels, so we've lived with his parents since we got married for peace of mind. Back then, not only his parents but also his sister, Emily, lived there. She used to live with her boyfriend, but they broke up because of his cheating. Emily, who moved in as if it was the most natural thing, turned out to be a monster. She stopped her temp job due to the breakup and spent her days lounging at home or going shopping with her mother, Carol. She never did any housework but would get angry over the smallest things. I thought she was crazy when she threw a fit and tossed an egg into the trash because it wasn't cooked the way she liked it. I wanted to tell her to make her own food if she didn't like it. This isn't a hotel. But I held back because if I talked back, I'd be blamed by my in-laws, who spoiled her. Carol didn't say a word to her unemployed daughter who was just having fun. And my father-in-law, John, just smirked as if it was amusing. Keith tried to talk to Emily, but being her younger brother seemed to carry little weight. She didn't care at all. Emily's monstrous behavior wasn't just about her selfishness, her lack of common sense was astounding too. On the day I gave birth to my daughter, she came to the hospital with John and Carol, led by Keith. As soon as she saw my parents holding my daughter, she glared at me and said, "Why are your parents holding her before us?" Then she added, "You married into this family. You should have let our mom and dad hold her first. Letting your own parents hold her first shows you have no sense of being a wife in this household, right, Mom?" She said this breathlessly and turned to look at Carol. "Well, yes, Emily is right," Carol nodded, seemingly confused. My parents, not wanting to get involved, quickly apologized and handed my daughter to Carol. Emily looked pleased with herself, and I couldn't understand what she was thinking. It was scary. My daughter seemed to sense something too and started crying. Maybe she's hungry? Keith wondered, so I took her back from Carol and headed to the nursing room, but Emily followed me, uninvited. And then, she suddenly started taking pictures. "Stop that, please." I blurted out. "What's the big deal?" "It's just breastfeeding. You're not naked or anything, getting all prissy about it is just weird," Emily laughed mockingly. "Just delete them already, stop joking around." Keith got angry at her, but Emily kept her eyes glued to her phone. "I've sent them to Mom and Dad, but I guess I can send them to some friends too, right?" "No. Please stop." When I desperately tried to stop her, Emily rolled her eyes in annoyance. "Breastfeeding is a natural thing, so being embarrassed about it is weird, you know? Your body's already gone saggy after having a kid. Who'd find that attractive? It's just ridiculous." Keith, fed up with her nonsense, finally kicked her out, but by then, my photo had already been sent to John and Carol and were also sent to their relatives. After giving birth, I suffered from severe skin breakouts due to hormonal imbalances. At my daughter's baby shower, in front of all the relatives, Emily said, "Your skin was always bad, but this is just unbelievably gross. I can't believe Keith married someone like you. Maybe he'll get fed up and cheat on you." She pointed out my breakouts and laughed as if I were a monster. That wasn't all. Seeing me overwhelmed with childcare, Carol offered to help with the housework, but Emily said, "Just let her do it as usual. Giving birth isn't an illness, after all." Then she yelled at me, "Don't be so spoiled. Right, things are different now compared to my time. You get all the care you need at the hospital." Emily's right. Carol agreed, stepping back from helping. I felt nauseous seeing Emily smugly watching this unfold. I'm not losing to her. I will make her regret her behavior one day. With my health at its worst, my mind was much more troubled than it is now, and I resolved to seek revenge. Thanks to my newfound determination, I managed to get through the difficult postpartum period, venting to Keith all the while. Childcare was challenging, but I was soothed by seeing my daughter grow up to be healthy and strong. Eventually, Emily got a boyfriend and moved out. But I knew this was just a temporary truce. I patiently waited for my chance. Emily got married about a year ago from now. The day after hearing she had given birth, I went to visit her with Carol, since Keith was at work. On the way, we ran into Emily's mother-in-law and went to the hospital room together. There, Emily showed Carol her newborn child. "Look, Mom, isn't she cute?" When Carol reached out to hold her, I gently pulled her hand back and stopped her. "What are you doing?" Emily said, so I smiled and explained to her. "Oh, have you forgotten? It's a rule that the parents of the wife's family can't hold the baby until the husband's parents have." "Oh dear, Emily. Don't you have any sense of being a daughter-in-law?" I was satisfied with my infuriating response, and Emily seemed even more agitated. She turned red and tried to yell but couldn't, as it was the truth. "I'm sorry, but it looks like you can't hold the baby today, Carol. After all, the rule is that the husband's father and mother hold the baby first," I told her, watching her fall silent. Carol looked to Emily desperately, but Emily only glared back at me hatefully. "Your family has some unusual rules," Emily's mother-in-law commented, looking confused. "So," I cheerfully explained, "when I gave birth, I didn't know about this rule." Emily scolded me for not having the awareness of a daughter-in-law. Even my parents had to apologize, so I remember it well. "Oh, right, Emily. We need to take photos, lots of photos." I clapped my hands to change the mood. Emily's mother-in-law also chimed in, "Oh, that's a wonderful idea. Go ahead and let her take some, Emily." This left Emily no reason to refuse. Okay, sure," she agreed. I got the agreement I needed. I emotionally detached myself and took numerous photos of Emily and her baby. I was lucky that Emily stopped paying attention to me as I kept taking photos. In the car on the way back home, I suggested to Carol, "I'll contact all the relatives about Emily's baby shower." I hadn't forgotten the humiliation from 3 years ago. Some people had sympathized with me at my own baby shower, but others, drunk uncles, laughed at my terrible skin condition. Seeing Carol nod in the rearview mirror, I smiled and said, "I'll do my best, Carol." Finally, the day of Emily's baby shower had arrived. Once the relatives had gathered and the lively celebration was underway, I texted Emily, "I've got some beautiful pictures." Emily's reaction was quick, and she was visibly shocked by the content. I sent another message, "I sent them out yesterday," and her face turned pale. Unable to contain herself, she stood up and exclaimed, "Harper, you are the worst." She yelled at me. Suddenly, the room fell into an eerie silence. "Emily, that's terrible. What have I ever done to you?" I asked with a solemn face, but getting slapped across the face was unexpected. "Hey, what are you doing to Harper?" Keith, emboldened by alcohol, shouted. Emily retorted, shoving her phone in his face, "Can you still defend her after seeing this photo?" She spread embarrassing photos of me. On the screen was the text I had just sent and a photo of Emily breastfeeding. With tears in my eyes from the slap, I explained loudly for everyone to hear. "I've only sent it to your family because it was beautifully taken." "What, to my family?" A classic misunderstanding. She must have thought I sent the breastfeeding photo to everyone. It was something Emily herself had done in the past. Slapping someone, that's awful. Besides, what's so embarrassing about it? Keith said, snatching the cell phone as planned. Then he suggested, should we ask the uncles too, and prepared to show it to the uncles who had turned into a curious crowd. "Stop it. Harper, you stop him." Emily tried to get her phone back. I dropped my smile and coldly replied, "Why should I stop him? What? It's just a breastfeeding photo. You're not naked. It's a beautiful, natural moment, isn't it?" "That's what you said, Emily." I threw back the same words she had said to me 3 years ago. 3 years ago, you took photos of me breastfeeding and sent them to your parents, even though I didn't want you to. The relatives, initially excited by the drama, were now silently listening to my story. Those photos were spread around your relatives and ended up on the phones of some of the uncles here. I was horrified when I saw they had the photos. A few uncomfortable murmurs rose, but I left those concerns to their wives. We'll deal with this later. Sorry, I didn't tell you about that part. I whispered to Keith, holding his hand to prevent him from lashing out. 3 years ago, you told me to show the breastfeeding at the baby shower. Why are you embarrassed now? Realizing the truth only when you become the victim is too late. Cornered, Emily blurted out, I didn't know. I didn't have children. She cried out in desperation. Well, sure, if you've never had children, you wouldn't know the struggles of severe skin breakouts or the pain after giving birth. And it's easy to say, do housework as usual because childbirth isn't an illness, isn't it? That's right, I didn't know, so it can't be helped. That's no excuse. Keith angrily retorted, and everyone around nodded, directing their blame towards Emily. Just because you didn't know, doesn't mean you lack compassion. That's just unacceptable as a person. Suddenly, a young woman's cry broke the silence. Hey, what's wrong? Asked Emily's husband, approaching a young woman. Since his parents were also nearby, she must be his sister. I was also victimized by Emily. His sister's words trailed off, but her tearful collapse was more impactful than my revelations. Following her brother's gentle guidance, she began to speak about the mistreatment she suffered from Emily. The content was typical bullying, but it was clear that it had enraged their parents. I'm scared to live with Emily. After the sister's final words, Keith looked at me in astonishment. Your plan is incredible. No way, this wasn't part of my plan. This unexpected event turned out to be the perfect outcome for my revenge. As for Emily, her husband, apparently very fond of his sister, ended up divorcing her, and she had to return to her parents' house. Expecting her parents to be happy about their granddaughter, they were instead caught up in checking John's phone because of my breastfeeding photo, leading to an even bigger scandal. From John's phone, numerous messages were discovered, showing him inappropriately interacting with young ladies from a strip club. It was revealed that he had been lavishly spending on expensive bags and accessories for these young women, leading to a potential crisis of family breakdown. I wonder how long John and Carol will continue to support their incapable daughter. She was branded as unacceptable by her own brother, a real outcast as a human being. Relying on relatives would likely be difficult for her. Of course, turning to her husband's family is out of the question. I had planned for her to be shunned by all relatives, but the sister's revelations pushed Emily even further into despair. I had shared most of the plan with Keith when he agreed to help. Hearing about the terrible treatment I endured, he thought we couldn't live with his parents anymore. With this incident, we quickly moved out of my in-laws' house, just the 3 of us with our daughter. Don't do to others what you don't want done to you. I think I'll make that our family's motto.